Farmers for Trump, baby.
Right now, we're in a very dire situation. September's upon us, harvest is starting in the deep south, and we have 0 bushels of soybeans on the books to be sold to China.
You know, the ones in Arkansas. Racism and capitalism are two interdependent systems that use othering to create hierarchies of worthiness. This justifies funneling public wealth, subsidies, bailouts to a privileged few, white, affluent, while simultaneously villainizing other groups, Black, poor, marginalized groups, for accessing the very same forms of assistance, thereby maintaining economic and social inequity. And the people in the back are not getting this because they believe that these two systems, racism and capitalism, are separate entities. Baby, they cousins. They in the same family. Ain't it funny that the same farmers asking for bailouts, handouts in Arkansas are the same farmers that, one, voted against their interests, and two, villainized others for asking for those same forms of assistance. Now, if you've been reading up on this situation in Arkansas, you know that it's only the white farmers that have received subsidies that are now struggling. Coincidentally, the Black farmers aren't struggling. Baby, they was never getting subsidies. And it's not like they didn't need them. Racism, systems of worthiness. We're worthy to get the subsidies. You aren't. Work harder. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. These same farmers that should be pulling themselves up by the bootstraps no longer see that reference as one that should apply to them. And baby, they paying a mighty high price. Yeah, sorry, not sorry. All right, y'all, I'm still working on this article.
Listen to me. Racism is the poison in Arkansas soil. That's right, racism. Last week, hundreds of Arkansas farmers stood in a room and broke down in prayer in front of their elected officials. They weren't praying for rain, guys. They weren't praying for sunshine. They weren't even praying for a bumper crop. They were praying because their farms, their family land, their way of life is collapsing under tariffs and trade wars. And here's the truth. Those tariffs, that trade war, that whole playbook was born out of racism. Farmers were told the story that punishing foreigners would make America strong again. They were told to clap when leaders wagged their finger at China, Mexico, or whoever else they decided was the villain of the week. They were told it was patriotism, but really it was racism dressed up in red, white, and blue, and farmers bought it. They cheered it. They co-signed it. And now they are the ones paying the bill. Look at soybeans. Without tariffs, U.S. beans leaving New Orleans are cheaper than Brazil. But with tariffs, suddenly Brazil is winning. And who did that? Not God, not nature, not fate, your own leaders waving a racist flag and calling it strength. And the farmers who clapped for it are now on their knees begging for help. This isn't the first time. History is packed with proof that racism bankrupts the very people it fuels. Jim Crow didn't just brutalize Black citizens. It strangled the Southern economy for generations. Segregation didn't just rob Black kids of opportunity. It robbed the entire South of progress, creativity, and prosperity. The Chinese Exclusion Act of the 1880s, it cut off immigrant labor that helped build America, leaving industries starved. Japanese internment during World War II, well, that destroyed businesses, farms, and families, and the whole economy bore the cost. Every single time America lets racism drive policy, the poison spreads. It never just hits the target. It always circles back. And now here we are again. Farmers in Arkansas prayed out loud last week because they're broke, and they know it. And some of them voted for this mess. Some of them cheered when the tariffs went into place because they thought it would put others in their place. But you can't hate and expect to harvest prosperity. You cannot poison your neighbor's well without eventually drinking from it yourself. So let's call this what it is. Racism is the poison in your soil. It's why your crops can't compete. It's why your barns are empty. It's why you bowed your head in front of men in suits who don't care about you at all beyond your vote. Racism doesn't just starve the people you think are your enemies, it starves you. Arkansas, this is your wake-up call. You can pray all you want, but you have to face the truth. Nothing changes unless you do. Racism isn't strength, it's weakness. It's not power, it's poison. It's killing your farms, your family, and your future. Please wake up.
Guess who just got the tea about what's going over on MAGA sides, specifically with the farmers in Arkansas? Child, them Trump tariffs is kicking their asses so bad that at the most recent NEA meeting representative assembly that took place on Friday, the farmers in Arkansas all collectively broke down in prayer. They started calling on to God. They started calling on to God because they cannot trust that Donald Trump is actually going to keep his word. See, the big beautiful bill, which a lot of these Arkansas farmers voted for, and the Trump administration is currently renaming because it did not accurately describe what was in the bill, promised a lot of the people in the agriculture industry benefits that a lot of these businesses will not live to see as they all take effect in 2026, 2027. Late 2026 and early 2027 to be exact. But like I stated, a lot of those businesses will not be around long enough to see it come into fruition. Apparently around that time, a quarter of the farming industry in Arkansas will be out of business. You already know that I always come with the evidence. I always have the clip. So stay tuned for the clip provided by ABC7.
The government steps in to save them. Farmers had no one to turn to but God. Farmers are lobbying. It's only they're closer to daily meetings on the server because we daily hear earth every day. You know, we're hurting anymore. We can't deal with what's happening to us.
Dear Lord, we are hurting here, Lord. We can't help what has happened to us. You actually could have helped it because you could have voted against it. Y'all could have voted for Kamala, but like you stated, she has a weird laugh. And here's a screenshot of the article. You can go and find it. Let's read along to the title. People have little sympathy for the Arkansas farmers who are asking Trump for emergency funding to save their farms. And because they can't trust on Trump to actually come through with these emergency funds, they started praying. I probably should have highlighted what I'm about to read, but it's in quotations at the top. It says, I have never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on. Welcome to the mentality of the average Black American here. Welcome to the mentality of the average Hispanic Latino person here. Welcome to the mentality of the average marginalized group member here in America. And to think that all of this could have been avoided, had you just listened to those same marginalized groups. If you would have just listened to the Black Americans here in this country, to the 92%, if you would have just listened. And now, ironically, the same tool that you used to oppress the marginalized groups in this country, the Black Americans in this country, the formerly enslaved people of America, religion, Christianity, prayer, is now the only tool that you can rely on because you can't trust in your government to look out for you. You can't trust in your government to help you. How fucking ironic. And just a reminder, because I know y'all like to forget, right? Anytime, historically speaking, by the way, the Black Americans of this country stated that they needed help, they wanted to be treated fairly, they wanted equality, you told them to pray harder. You sent them to church. You told them to pray harder. That if it's really meant for them, all they had to do was pray harder and God was going to hear them. So that's my advice to you, you farmers in Arkansas. Pray harder, okay? Just keep praying. However, I do have a strong inkling that we are not praying to the same gods. I know the God that I pray to. There's only one. I don't know what you're praying to, but pray harder, okay? God bless America.
Hey fam, welcome back to Echo Room Vibes. Before we dive in, hope you guys are doing well. Remember, it's not just about surviving the chaos, it's about finding ways to thrive through it. Now let's get into this Arkansas farmer story because man, this one has layers.
So that's what we got for American farmers, is zero empathy. We want them to fail. That's what you're saying out there. That's what Americans are saying right now is well, next time you'll vote the right way.
Sir, how do y'all pray publicly the other day for God to take pity on you, but you don't take pity on the people who asked you not to vote the way that you did? How do you not see the problem here? How do you ask for empathy, ask for pity, ask for sympathy from the general public, and the general public is clapping back and telling you, like, well, what can we do? You all asked for this. You literally asked for this. He said what he was going to do. This is not something he lied about. This is what he said he was going to do. In the rare moment, he told the truth, and he's doing it. And the lie was that other countries would pay, but you knew. You're smart. You have degrees. Some of you have masters and more. You know science. You know math. You know things. You know business. You knew that he was lying about other countries paying the tariffs. You knew that was going to have to come back on you. And you knew that there would be a risk that other countries would not want to buy from you because they don't want to deal with the country anymore because of tariffs. And here we are. Presumably, you know the Bible and the verse of Deuteronomy that says, I call forth heaven and earth today to bear witness that I set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Therefore, choose life that you and your seed may live. And you all chose death. You all chose cursing. I'm not going to say you're living under a curse, but I am going to say you're living under consequences of your decisions. So you're not dumb. And I guess you thought either you're going to get a $28 billion bailout like the first time, or you're going to cash in and have a windfall off of those tariffs. But as is evidenced by even billionaires, and some of y'all thought like, oh, I'm a white man, I'm different. He's not going to get rid of my labor force. He's not going to send ice for my farms. Have fooled you. And you're like, I'm special, I'm different, I'm a white man. He's a white man. He's looking out for us. He doesn't look out for anyone but himself. As evidenced by billionaires sounding the alarm that man is ruining the economy for everyone. So let's recap. You have some knowledge of God enough to pray for him, at least in your last ditch attempt to save yourselves, your money, really, not even yourselves. You're not dumb, right? So it's two things. The only other thing I'm left with is that within your heart, soul, spirit, and the marrow of your bones is the infestation of disgusting racism. That is in your heart. That is who you are. And instead of you choosing to work on it and decide not to be it, because it actually affects everything, and as we were telling you, it's expensive and nobody survives it in the end. It ruined the country once. It ruined the world once. But y'all are not dumb. You could have paid attention, but you said maybe this time it'll be different. It never works out. You didn't choose life. You didn't choose blessings. You chose death and curses. And now your seed, your literal seed, is going to die. Well, it might not die. It might be sold off for pennies on the dollar along with the land to Monsanto. So get those contracts drawn up, baby. You can't be saying that you know God, believe in God, and love God, and have none of God's love in you, and then stand up there and say, on Judgment Day, I want to answer for how I voted. How are you going to answer now? God can't get you out of situations you put yourself in, but sometimes a hard lesson has to be taught.
To all my farmer neighbors, my name is Susie, and I live in rural Missouri. You were warned over and over and over. We told you there was no drag queen story hour. There were no furries in our school using litter boxes. But you guys refused to call the superintendent of the schools like I did. I called Rolla Public Schools and asked Dr. Dare if there was any truth to that. He laughed and said maybe I was watching too much TV. We told you that China signed 20-year contracts with Brazil for soybeans. You laughed in our face. I'm not going to say I told you so, but I do not want to bail you out for the next 20 years and I will fight against it. China signed 20-year contracts with Brazil for soybeans because of Donald J. Trump. They don't want our soybeans. They don't want our beef. They don't want our wheat. They don't want anything we grow. As far as we're concerned, China can stick it up our ass. And can you blame them? Can you really blame them?
So the farmers in Arkansas are quite literally begging the government for money.
Almost everything that could go wrong for Arkansas farmers did go wrong this year. And it's so bad that many are facing bankruptcy or even the closure of farms that have been passed down for generations.
If there's no emergency funding this year, there will be 1 out of 3 farmers will file bankruptcy.
Until the federal government steps in to save them, farmers have no one to turn to but God.
Farmers, in my opinion, dear Lord, and it's only my opinion, are closer.
In case you didn't know, Trump put a tariff on all fertilizer, seed, and other things that farmers need. And a lot of these farmers were part of the U.S. aid. The U.S. aid contracted these farmers to make things like soybeans and rice. But now Trump slashed almost all of the U.S. aid, and it is leaving farmers going bankrupt. Because God forbid we send food to foreign countries. And now those farmers are out of a job. Most of these farmers voted for this, and now they are asking for government handouts. When Trump said he was going to defund all of these programs, also implement all of these tariffs, did you really think that you would not be affected by all of this? Are you that gullible?
Welcome back, fam. So, apparently farmers in Arkansas who went full MAGA are now hitting a wall. The tariffs they cheered for, the same tariffs they thought were gonna bring back American greatness, are now dragging their soybeans straight into bankruptcy court. And guys, it got so bad that at a recent NEA meeting, they literally broke down in prayer, out loud, hands raised, farmers crying out, "Lord, we are hurting here." Now, don't get me wrong. I don't mock prayer. Prayer can be powerful, but let's be real here. This is a political problem, not a spiritual one. You can't tariff your way into heaven, and you can't pray away an economic collapse you voted into existence. The video we stitched this from, and shout out to the original creators and stitches who have been breaking this down, paints the irony so clearly. These farmers trusted a promise of big, beautiful bills that wouldn't even take effect until 2026, maybe 2027. But by then, a quarter of Arkansas farms could already be gone. In other words, the safety net was pushed away down the road while the floor under them is collapsing right now. And the wild part? These are the same communities that dismissed Black and Latino voices for decades. When marginalized groups begged for equality, begged for fair treatment, begged for wages that kept up with inflation, what was the answer? Pray harder, go to church, ask God, wait. Now, when the pain finally hit home in Arkansas, suddenly prayer is no longer a tool of dismissal, it's the last lifeline. This is where it gets deep. Religion and politics have always been intertwined in America. Christianity has been weaponized to tell Black people to suffer quietly, to tell immigrants to wait their turn, to tell poor folks that heaven will reward them even if earth never did. And now that same strategy has looked back on the very people who upheld it. When the money dries up, when the crops can't move, when China ends buying soybeans, suddenly it's them being told to wait on God. Now, here's where I want to push the conversation deeper. It's easy to laugh and say, Well, you voted for it, Fafo. And yeah, this is some poetic justice there. But let's not lose sight of the fact that some of these farmers didn't vote MAGA. Some are collateral damage in a system that doesn't actually care about them either. When the food supply chain collapses, when farms close down, it's not just about MAGA voters. It affects all of America. Prices rise, communities shrink, and more power gets consolidated in corporate agriculture. So here's my question to you guys. What do we do with this moment? Do we keep saying, you all made your bed, now lie in it? Or do we step back and realize that gloating while rural families collapse only pushes them deeper into extremism? Because history shows us something dangerous. People who feel punished and humiliated often don't learn compassion. They double down. They vote harder for the very people exploiting them. And that brings me back to this prayer scene. It's tragic, but also revealing. The same faith that was used to silence others is now being used to soothe their own despair. Maybe that's the opening for a deeper reckoning. Maybe this is the moment to remind them solidarity works better than silence. Coalitions build more power than isolation. And policies, not prayers alone, are what save industries. So yeah, farmers in Arkansas are learning that owning the lips doesn't pay the mortgage, that tariffs can sound patriotic but feel like foreclosure, and that faith without policy is just hope deferred. But what do you all think? Is this karma hitting Arkansas, or is this a cautionary tale for all of us about how political choices ripple through entire communities? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know if you lean more toward justice, empathy, or both. That's today's Echo Room vibe. Stay grounded, stay sharp, and remember, what we plant in politics, we also reap. Thanks for watching. From Echo Room Vibes, peace out.